Okay, welcome back to Awoken. I am doing another chapter right now, and I've moved Fitzy. So I've actually got the thing sitting up properly. Hopefully this will go a bit more smoothly. Right, so Andy has just met Riley Bay, who talks really funny, like ridiculous, and he's in this next chapter, yes, which is called Contradictions. After Thursday's debacle at Henrietta's, I spent Friday doubling down on my efforts to avoid stumbling into Riley's line of sight, at least whenever possible. I resolutely refused to look over my shoulder in any of our classes. Miraculously, I managed it, though it wasn't easy. I nearly had a slip-up almost from the get-go in second period when Monsieur Cousteau, their French teacher, because that's the only name of a French person I know, when Monsieur Cousteau called on Riley. Even though I was braced for it, his resonant voice 3 rows behind me sent chilly shivers down my spine as he conjugated the verbs perfectly, his accent flawless. Très bien, Monsieur Bay. Vous êtes en crédit à cette classe. Even Monsieur Cousteau was awed by Riley's command of the tongue. Perhaps some of your classmates might benefit if you offered your services as a tutor, non? His accent is written out, so I believe I should probably be true to this book and do it. I heard some of the girls in class giggling and repeating the word services. In the desk next to mine, Bree fanned herself, perhaps only half in mockery, and I rolled my eyes. But even I had to bite the end of my Lisa Frank pencil to keep from following every other eye in the room when Riley responded. Ce serait mon plaisir. The words rolled off his tongue like French honey. It would be his pleasure. Also, Lisa Frank pencil, yeah, she's an asshole. How had I managed to never hear his voice, outside of my dream, that is, before yesterday? Maybe the teachers had been going easy on him for his first day of classes at a new school, but now it seemed like every single one of them was part of a conspiracy to make me break my resolution. They all called on him at least once the rest of the day. Hearing him behind me sent increasing strata of tingles over my flesh each time. Strata? I kept my legs tightly crossed under my desk, my teeth all but permanently clenched. I'm not going to say anything. The tension in the air was almost unbearable. I wondered if anyone else could feel it, like at any moment he might suddenly say something nasty about me out of nowhere. I know she still thinks he hates it, but come on, it works. I knew I was probably just psyching myself out, but I wouldn't put it past him. If yesterday had been any indication, despite his usual strong, silent type routine, when he did open his mouth, he didn't apparently have much of a filter, especially where I was concerned. Yeah, he called you an insolent wench, and doesn't know what a pool party is. I mean, he might be on his Rumspringa? Is that a thing? No, he's a Cthulhu. By the time school was out for the week, I was exhausted, and wanted nothing more than to just crash and forget all about the past 5 days. My parents attempted to goad me into watching a movie with them, Mum wheedling me with a batch of her homemade apple cider that she was perfecting for the annual Portsmouth Pumpkin Festival the week after next. But I just didn't have the energy to deal with them, and I managed to escape. Jeez, your parents suck so bad they want to spend time with you. I'm aware I was a shitty teenager. Like, this is very hypocritical of me. Typical Andy Slate, in bed by 9:30 p.m. on a Friday night. At least I was too tired to spend much time stressing over the dreaded pool party. But the weariness didn't keep me from dreaming about him. Of course. Going to the pool party! Heck yeah, we are. Saturday afternoon found me staring at the 3 bathing suits I owned as they lay splayed across my bed. I'd known about Jared's party since the first week of school, and had been planning to wear my white sundress with the navy-style buckles on the straps, and the little embroidered anchor on the pleated skirt. It would have been the perfect goodbye to summer outfit paired with my rope-heeled wedges. I hadn't even considered bringing a bathing suit. I certainly wouldn't be swimming at the party. When it came to water, I was all oil. We just didn't mix. Swimming was simply something I did not do. It was kind of ironic, considering my parents' life location and where we lived. But the dark truth was that the ocean terrified me. Oh, that's ironic for more reasons than you know, Andy. There's a word for people like me. Thalassophobic. And I was a textbook example. When I was a kid, I used to have nightmares about being swallowed up by stormy waves, devoured by serpentine sea monsters, or drowning under my parents' research boat while they were too busy with their binoculars and notebooks to notice I'd even slipped off. I suppose the dreams hadn't exactly ever stopped, had they? I shivered as I pushed away the image of the statuesque boy that threatened to surface from the sea of my mind. Ooh, that's good writing. And I focused instead on the swimsuits, on my turquoise argyle comforter. Oh, that's right, comforter. It's what you guys call a duvet. I think they're the same thing. Needless to say, none of them had ever touched water outside of a washing machine. Why the fuck do you have them then? Dumb bitch. Jared's extravagant swimming pool with its 3-tiered stone waterfall and elevated hot tub was a far cry from the ocean of my nightmares, but I definitely wouldn't be going within 5 feet of it if I could help it. For that matter, I wouldn't have even been going to the party at all if I could help it. I knew I wasn't going to fit in. Even though, she sounds like the most basic of basic bitches. Like, why would she not fit in? Is she too boring? Excuse me. Even though Jared and most of his meathead friends were seniors, a year above me, I always just felt so old around them. But avoiding the event was out of the question. When the Grand Poobah All High, Madame Bridget Pfeiffer, decided to go to a party, that's Brie, by the way, she always found a way to make sure I suffered through it with her. But despite all that, I couldn't explain my sudden desire to wear a bathing suit. Perhaps there's someone you want to impress? Italics. I glowered daggers at the inner voice that dared to nag me. No, it was because I knew Brie would berate me if I didn't wear one, whether I swam or not. That was the only reason. She sort of tears between Brie being weird and awkward and she has to cover for her all the time, and Brie being the social butterfly. So, I don't know, maybe they cut a character out of the book and just combined 2 girls into Brie. I don't care. I strongly considered the boy short tankini set I usually donned whenever I attempted to sunbathe. Sunbathing is so bad for you. Oh my god, people just casually do it. And, like, it's normal overseas. Like, people use coconut oil and things to help them tan. In New Zealand, my whole life, I've been brought up slip, slop, slap. Slip on a t-shirt, slop on some sunscreen, slap on a hat. Like, we are trained from birth to fear the sun. Because there's a hole in the ozone layer right above us and we have, like, a ton of skin cancer. Anyway, just a little PSA. Always remember to use sunscreen. Even if it's a cloudy day. But then I found myself fingering the material, thought it was about to get sexy, of my royal purple bikini. I'd bought it while under the influence of Brie, all caps, when we'd been shopping at the Victoria's Secret outlet in Newport last summer. Brie was always pushing me to be more spontaneous. But besides the fact I'd owned it for over a year, I'd never been brave enough to actually wear it. Perhaps you just never had a reason to before. That's how I'm going to do her italics, I think, from now on. I bit my lip hard and snatched up my aquamarine one-piece with the wrap top. Part of me was still furious with Brie for spilling the beans to Riley. What had she been thinking? That maybe he was just lonely and only needed to feel welcome, and then he'd suddenly open up to being social like a magical moonflower and somehow become anything other than an insufferably conceited jerk? It wasn't going to happen. But maybe he wouldn't actually show up to the party after all. He clearly had no interest in getting to know anyone else at school. I couldn't see why he would even want to come. Just to stare at me some more with his hate-filled gaze. Didn't he get enough of that during school hours? You would think he'd at least want a break on the weekend. But that was too much to hope for. When Bree and I walked into Jared's sprawling backyard, fashionably late, as per Bree's plan, parentheses, the party was in full swing, and Riley was impossible to miss on the far side of the patio, looking like an Abercrombie and Fitch billboard idol in deep green swim trunks and absolutely nothing else. He's not even wearing jandals. You can see the feet, sweetie. I heard Bree release a low whistle next to me. I didn't think it was humanly possible for real people to look like that. Clothes. I rolled my eyes. I'm still not convinced he's not some kind of cyborg. Bree gave me a look, but then shook her head. Well, they sure don't seem to mind. She was referring to the veritable harem of string bikini-clad girls that surrounded him, laughing like jackals at everything he said. I couldn't imagine what they could be talking about. He certainly didn't look like he was saying anything funny. He had the same cold, hard expression as always, but he was talking to them, and I wasn't sure what to make of the oddly bitter taste that realization left in my mouth. He was actually engaging in conversation and not looking at me. For once. I should have been thrilled, but instead I only felt simple and invisible in my comparatively conservative bathing suit and sheer sarong. I almost gagged as one of the tanned blondes at Riley's side handed him a bottle of coconut oil and gestured to her back. Oil? No. Jared's got the grill going, Bree chirped. I'm going to say hi and get a hot dog. Want one? I shook my head and she bounded off. Oh, Bree, you fucking human dog. Always looking for food and sex and companionship. What a bitch. She doesn't deserve true love. Sorry, there's like a major problem with this book that I have personally. I ignored Riley completely and wandered through the throng of partiers toward the arrangement of comfortable lounge chairs that took up most of the expansive raised wooden deck. They were a good enough distance from the pool where I didn't have to worry about falling victim to any wayward splashing. Hey, Andy, Vic called, intercepting me as I passed by one of the artfully displayed snack tables. A fluffy purple towel was slung over his broad brown shoulders. I was wondering when you'd get here. I was about to jump in, but... Yowza! He was cut off by Travis, Jared's best friend from the football team. He had clearly just come from the pool. Looking scrumptious, Andy Cakes. This guy's up to no good. I blinked, then shrugged. Thanks. Vic's expression darkened and he stepped over to Travis. Hey, dude, don't talk to my friend that way. Oh, Vic, he's such a great older brother to her. Travis lifted his hands and flashed Vic a bleached smile. Chill, man. No disrespect. He turned to me and ran his tanned fingers back through his wet blonde hair. Heading poolwards? And he doesn't swim, Vic snapped. I groaned internally. There he went again. The protective brother thing could really get beyond awkward sometimes. Outwardly, I just shook my head and managed an inept half-smile. You boys have fun, though. I waved to goodbye and then skirted the snack table to finish my trajectory to the deck. So you should see him pick up a snack, because food is not for good girls. Where I contentedly spent the next hour stretched out on one of the lounge chairs, engrossed in reading my well-worn copy of my favourite classic book, The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and cajoling my helplessly pale skin to at least try to soak up some sun. They're always really pale as well. Like, that has not been... Whatever. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit anymore. It was a useless effort. I couldn't tan if my life depended on it. Even if I did get any colour, it would be gone by tomorrow. Then why are you exposing yourself to potential skin cancer? I mean, okay, I know you guys don't have the whole ozone layer right over wherever. So why don't you swim? I almost jumped in my cushioned chair. I'd been so caught up in the tragedy of the Phantom and Christine's forbidden love story that I hadn't even heard Travis approach. It's been a long time since I've read The Phantom of the Opera. But It did not strike me as a love story. It was more like a kidnapping and a rescue and a deranged madman. Okay. I mean, I know a lot of people do see it that way, but yeah, no. So Travis has approached, even though Andy has not heard him do so. He grabbed one of the deck chairs and flipped it around, straddling it backward, right up against the side of my lounge. He folded his beefy arms on the chair's back and looked down at me. He dried off, but he was close enough that I could still smell the chlorine on him. I shook my head and quickly tried to concoct an answer that was anything but the truth. However, my train of thought completely left the station as I suddenly couldn't help noticing that Riley was standing about 20 feet behind Travis, just at the edge of the deck, like a chiseled marble statue come to life. His pack of bleach blonde hyenas was gone and he was staring at me again. Except, no. This time he was staring at Travis. Oh, good for you, Cthulhu. And if I thought his eyes were filled with hate when he looked at me before, they were brimming with unadulterated vitriol now. If I didn't have prior knowledge of how thick Travis's head was, I would have been baffled that he could manage not to feel that blazing green gaze burning straight through the back of his skull. Travis glanced over his muscled, fuckable shoulder to see what I was looking at. I'm sorry I put that in there. But he didn't notice Riley or didn't care. I don't know how he possibly accomplished either. He looked back down at me. I see. Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. I repressed a shudder and blinked to focus on him again. Huh? You don't have a reason. It took me a moment to remember what he was talking about, but then the thought train came back into the station and hit me. I shook my head. I just can't swim. I never learned. He let out a jocular laugh. Jock. Great writing. It's only like 4 feet deep. Not all of it. I glanced to the end of the abstractly shaped pool nearest to us. I knew it must be the deep end, because at that moment I happened to catch Bree doing a colossal cannonball off the diving board there. She almost landed on Vic, who was treading water nearby. Everyone laughed, and they started a race to the far side of the pool. So what are you reading? Travis inquired. Don't ask her what she's reading. She's reading. I lifted my book just to show him the cover, but he took it right out of my hand and flipped idly through the pages. Looks interesting. He was clearly not in the least bit interested. I shrugged, playing it cool. I like it. No way was I going to tell him that it struck chords in my heart that no other story ever had. A guy like Travis couldn't possibly ever understand. And now this is the worst fucking thing ever, because people taking books off people as a bullying tactic just makes me furious every single time. And yeah, it happened to me a lot. Of course it did. I post online all day. Of course I was bullied at school. A guy like Travis couldn't possibly ever understand the amazing depths of Andy's feeling for the Phantom of the Opera. Oh yeah? His blonde eyebrows rose on his tan forehead and he stood up, taking the book with him. I pushed myself up when I realized he was heading for the pool. Hey! Travis laughed. Then you probably wouldn't like it if I accidentally dropped it in the water. Oh, fuck you, Travis. Fuck you. He pretended to teeter on the edge. It sure is slippery over here. Travis! I snapped, leaving the safety of my chair to go after him. What do you say, Andy? I think one of you is going to go swimming. You or your book. Oh, you fucker, Travis. You absolute fucker. I felt my stomach drop. I'd owned that copy of Phantom since I was 13 and read it more times than I could even remember. It was battered and dog-eared, sure, but it was a dear old friend to me. Yeah, fuck you, Travis, fuck you. I folded my arms tightly and glared at him. You're acting like a child. He grinned at me as he waged the book over the water. Come on, just spill it. Why don't you want to swim? Afraid your hair will get frizzy? I just don't like it, okay? How will you know unless you try it? Fuck you, Travis. Just stop. Come on, Andy Cakes, do it for your precious book. I threw down my arms with a groan of frustration and stepped up, reaching around him to try and snatch the book back. I realized an instant too late what a grave mistake I'd made. I felt his thick arm lock around my waist and I gasped, jerking back on instinct. I don't know if he actually slipped or if he did it intentionally, but either way, he was laughing as the ground disappeared beneath us. Also, fuck guys like that, jeez. The next thing I knew, we were slamming through the water and then we were submerged, and I was instantly more terrified than I'd ever been in my life. I thrashed at first and opened my mouth to scream, but when the chlorinated brine? Salt water? Rushed down my throat, my body locked up. Only distantly could I tell how quickly I sank, like a stone. The seacrest hues that surrounded me began to blur, and I saw the shape of my book float by the corner of my eye for a second before fuzzy white overtook my vision. Wow, she just starts drowning instantly. My heart combusted in my chest and needles stabbed every inch of my skin. My body burned to move, but it couldn't. And then I knew. This was it. Every one of my worst nightmares had finally come true. It was no use. No use fighting. I knew. And I gave in. This bitch starts drowning instantly, and then she's like, well, this is happening. I mean, in a way, it's very zen of her, but... I could hear nothing but the crashing of my pulse in my ears, but it too faded, and soon everything around me was soft and floaty. I found myself drifting into a long-forgotten memory. A summer afternoon when I was very young, on my parents' boat, bobbing on the gentle waves off the San Diego coast. The sun warm on my cheeks, the ocean breeze whispering through my hair. Look, Andy, whales! Do you see the whales? No, sweetie, look further. Out there, beyond. A distant splash of a body diving into the water above me broke through the soft stuff of the memory, but then it too was gone. Don't lean over too far, Andy. If you fall in, we'll never be able to get you back. I think I know where her terrors come from. Oops, sauce. Suddenly I felt Travis wrenched away from me. I hadn't even realized he was still holding me until he was gone, and for an instant the water's chill assaulted my back, but only for an instant, and then arms were around me. I must have been beyond delirious because it felt like more than two. Countless arms, an impossible number of them, surrounding my frame, enveloping me, completely entwining me, strong and protective, gathering me against a hard, firm body like the most precious of pearls from the darkest of depths, buoying me to the surface where I burst forth into the glorious air with a tremendous gasp. This is reading like Slender Man porn fiction. I'm here for it. I gulped in mouthfuls of air, sweet and beautiful, and was faintly aware of Vic's voice shouting my name from afar. My vision began to clear as I felt the strong arms pull me up out of the pool as if I weighed no more than a child. I coughed and sputtered as the arms sat me down gently on the ledge, and then I realized that there were only two of them, and that they belonged to Riley Bay. So I guess this is Bella getting hit by the van, pretty much. He released me and crouched at my side, his face inches from mine, his hair dripping down his forehead. His black brows knit deeply as he peered intently into my eyes. It was as if he was searching for something, demanding an answer to a question I could never begin to fathom. Excellent writing. I was too shocked to react. My mouth fell open and I stared back at him. Andy, Vic's voice called, closer now. I heard splashing. Riley's eyes flashed. He pulled away from me with a noise under his breath that sounded almost like a growl. I must have still been pretty disoriented because he was suddenly several feet away from the pool, faster than I thought anyone could possibly move. I heard more splashing and angry voices arguing. I looked back to the pool and drew my feet up from where they still dangled in the water, wrapping my arms tightly around my knees and immediately beginning to shiver as if the air temperature had suddenly dropped 20 degrees. What's the matter with you? Are you crazy? Vic was shouting at Travis, who looked like he'd only just surfaced about 15 feet from where we'd gone in. Travis pushed his bangs out of his face while treading water and opened his mouth as if he'd answer Vic, but then it just kept opening and opening. I didn't know a mouth could open that far. His tongue lolled out, his lips curled back, and his eyes bulged as if they'd come right out of their sockets, his face contorting in a gruesome display of excruciating agony. A moment later, a ragged, ear-splitting howl escaped his throat and tore icicles up my spine. His hands shot up to clamp against his own ears, and he sank straight to the bottom of the pool. Even once he was submerged, I could swear I could still hear the screaming. A second later, a bloom of red erupted around his shadowy shape below the choppy surface. Vic's eyes went wide, and he dove after him. I scrambled back from the edge of the pool as pandemonium broke out around me, and everyone else fought to escape the water. Some girls started shrieking, and other people shouted for help. My back hit the wooden edge of the deck, and I looked up. Riley was standing above me, as still as a statue, his hands clenched at the sides of his dripping swim trunks, much like Arthur in that one picture. But no, as I looked closer, I realized he wasn't still at all. His entire frame was trembling. So with calling your body your frame, weird. And his face was intensely focused into an expression of what could only be called sheer black loathing, his smouldering eyes fixed on the spot where Travis had disappeared. I gasped and pushed myself to my feet. If he noticed me there, he didn't show it. I followed his gaze back to the pool and saw Vic and another boy bring Travis to the surface. He was still howling, and burgundy blood was streaming from his ears. Good, he stole their book. They got him up on the ledge where he curled into a ball and began to claw at his own eyes. 3 of his friends from the football team jumped to stop him, pinning him down, and Vic backed away in dismay as a crowd gathered from all sides. I saw Vic crouch at the edge of the pool and fish something out of the water. Then he seemed to look around amid the swarm of frightened people. He looked lost. I knew he was looking for me. But, fuck him, she doesn't care. I turned my attention back to Riley. His gaze remained deadlocked on where Travis was, though there was no way he could possibly see him through the crowd. But if anything, the look in his eyes became even darker. His lips were moving just slightly, as if he were whispering to himself, though I couldn't hear anything despite how close I was. What was he doing? What was wrong with Travis? I looked back to the crowd. Someone shouted to call 911. I put a hand over my mouth as I drew in a gasp. I shook my head, in denial. Unlike all the other ways of shaking your head. No, it wasn't possible. I looked back to Riley. His jaw was clenched now, but his look was the same. I started to back away. You! His head snapped in my direction, and I bit back a gasp. But when his eyes met mine, the dark look was gone. It was only the usual glower of contempt that greeted me. He seemed to study my face for a moment, but only briefly, and then his lip curled into a disdainful sneer. He turned on his heel and stalked away, disappearing into the crowd. Oh God, what was that? Andy, you all right? It was Vic at my elbow. I turned to him, suddenly trembling head to toe. His face was filled with concern. His warm ochre eyes pained as they took in my bemused expression. Here, he gently wrapped his fluffy purple towel around me. You're all right? I tried to nod, but I suddenly felt on the verge of tears. Hey, it's okay. He put an arm around my shoulders, pressing the towel against my back. I tried to swallow what threatened to be a sob and dropped my forehead against the front of his wet shoulder. He gently patted my back, his voice soothing. You were only under for a few seconds. I saw the whole thing from the other end of the pool. I was on my way over, but then that guy dove in and dragged you out. A few seconds? It had felt like so much longer. And it hadn't felt like dragging. It had felt like floating, like flying. I shivered as I remembered the feeling of Riley's arms around me, the look in his otherworldly eyes as his face had been so close to mine at the side of the pool. Wasn't she sitting at the side of the pool and he was standing near her? I don't care. But then, Travis. It was like Riley did something. Something to Travis. Oh God, what had he done? And why? I bit my lip hard and looked down. It was then that I noticed Vic held something in his other hand. The waterlogged remains of my book. Oh God. What had I done? I don't know. That's the end of... Whoops. That is the end of chapter 5. Where Andy is... I guess she's trying to figure out... I guess she thinks that because she was so pissed at Travis, Teen Cthulhu murdered him or something. I think she's worked that out. I'm not sure. It's very hard to know what Andy knows and what she doesn't. So, yeah, that was chapter 5 of Awoken by Sarah Allenson. So I hope you could see it better this time. And, oh, Fitz is being very sweet. He's making little noises like a stuffed animal. Really don't want to move to wake him, so... thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, my @ is John_Snow_420. Oh my god, I just put my hand down next to him and he put his little paw on top of my hand. Oh my god. I don't know what you can see here, if anything. So, thank you for watching. Bye bye.